So quite often when I'm showing you guys different plugins, I have to decide for myself, okay, am I showing you a plugin that is only useful for administrators, or am I showing you plugins that are good for players? Well, this one today is actually good for both. Today's video was actually inspired by somebody in my Discord, which if you haven't joined the Discord yet, make sure you do. There's a link in the video description down below. Anyways, a member in that Discord was asking me, is there a way that you can see the inventory of somebody's TC without actually being authorized on it? And of course, my answer to that was yes. And I knew exactly which plugin to be telling that person about. But after I got thinking about it for a little while, I realized that there's so much more we can actually use with this plugin as compared to how I'm actually using it and how that Discord member was actually asking how to use it. So stay tuned. Today we're talking about TC Manager. Hey everybody, welcome back to Rust Admin Academy, where I teach you guys the very best tips and tricks to owning and operating a successful Rust server. On this channel, I do a lot of plugin reviews and tutorials to hopefully show you guys some of the tricks, some of the pitfalls, and some of the solutions that you're going to need as you're setting up your servers. So if you're brand new to the channel, consider subscribing so that you stay up to date on everything that we're working on. And of course, remember to turn on that notification bell so that you get notified as soon as I upload a new video. I put out a brand new video every Friday at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. All right, of course, we can find TC Manager on the Umod website. I'll put a link to it in the video description down below like I always do, so you guys can get to it super easy. So the basic premise of this plugin is it makes it so that we can remotely access our TC. Now that doesn't mean that you can access your TC from across the map. You still have to be within building permission. But what does that mean for your player if you choose to set it up this way is they can actually bury their TC inside their walls somewhere and not have access to it. And then they can just remote access into it by using a simple chat command. We'll get into those chat commands in just a couple of minutes. Now, as well as being able to access your TC remotely, you can also see on screen what your current upkeep cost is for all of the different materials that are being used in your base currently. You can also use it as a calculator to figure out how much it would cost if you were to upgrade or downgrade your base to a different level. Don't worry, like I said, we're going to get into all the commands in just a couple of minutes. And of course, as we would expect, there are some permissions that are associated with this plugin. Once we get in game, I'll show you what each permission allows the player to do. And as you can see here, there's also a bunch of chat commands that we're going to need to know how to use. All of this information is of course available on the Umod site when you go to the TC Manager page, but we're going to go in game and I'm going to show you how to use all of these commands and what the benefits are to the players and what the benefits are to the admins. All right, now that we're in game, we can actually go into the permissions manager and actually figure out which permissions are associated with this plugin and which abilities we want to grant to our players on the server. Today we'll be using admin menu from Chaos Code. As you guys know, I like to switch it up. Oh, and by the way, if you're unfamiliar with the easiest way to manage your permissions on your server, make sure you check out the video in the top right-hand corner right now. It goes over how I deal with permissions and how it makes it so super easy that you'd be crazy to not check out my method of managing permissions. All right, so let's go into permissions. Let's go into group permissions, and then we're going to go into the default group right here. Now, this is all the permissions that I have from, oh, and another thing worth mentioning is this isn't actually my test server. This is actually the ominous solo duo trio server. So if you guys want to check out everything that I do on my own personal servers, feel free to check out Ominous 2X. It's a solo duo trio server. All right, so let's scroll over to TC Manager, and there we go, TC Manager for the group called default. So tcmanager.auth, what this permission allows the player to do is remotely authorize another player onto the TC that they're currently accessing. tcmanager.openinv, obviously that is the remote access to the TC. So you can enter a chat command and remote access into the TC. Don't worry, you're going to see all of this happening in real time in just a couple of minutes. tcmanager.taxrate is how much tax you're paying in resources dependent on the size of the base. As we all know, the bigger a base actually gets, the higher you pay in percentage of resources in the TC in order to maintain that base. tcmanager.upkeep basically gives you a visual readout in your chat of what it's costing to actually maintain your base at its current state. So all these permissions right here are just allowing the player, in this case the group default, it's allowing them the ability to use these commands. A lot of server owners won't actually allow access to the regular player for upkeep and tax rate. So if that's how you want to run it on your server, you can just remove those two permissions right there, and then they still have the ability to remotely access the TC as well as authorize their friends or teammates, which by the way, you can deauthorize players if for whatever reason they've left your group or team, or they've betrayed you or backstabbed you or whatever, and you don't want them to have access to your TC. Or if you just want to play a funny trick on your friends and have the flame turrets and shotgun traps shoot them for whatever reason, you can use the deauth command to remove a player from the TC. Like I said, we're going to get into that in just a minute. Now that we're done with permissions, let me just turn those back on so I can keep using them. So as you can see, I'm in my base and I have building privilege. Here is my TC TC behind this door right here. And of course you can access it like normal, like you would expect. But let's imagine this is actually behind a brick wall. All right, so as you can see, I now have that TC section walled off. I can no longer access it. So I can simply do in chat /tcinv, and it brings up my TC inventory just as if I were interacting with it right in front of me. So as you can see there, this is legitimately my TC inventory, and it looks exactly the same we would expect it to look. So you can see the huge benefit to that. Your players on your server can actually bury their TCs. If you want to make it so that it's even harder for a potential raider to find that TC so that they can grief the base, so they can take over the base, whatever the case might be, this remote access to the TC makes it super hard for a potential raider to destroy somebody else's TC or even get access to somebody else's TC. If you want to authorize other players or other teammates to this TC without actually having access to it, the person that has building permission can of course add new players to it by using the chat command /tcauth and then that player's name. If for whatever reason you need to remove somebody from your TC authorization list, you can use /tcunauth and then that player's name. That will remove the player from the TC authorization, no longer giving them access to it, which of course removes their remote access, plus it removes their protections from shotgun traps as well as flamethrowers. If we use the chat command /upkeep, this will then show us what our current upkeep costs are on the base currently right now. So whatever materials are being used by your base right now, it's going to show you a list and how many of those resources are required for every 24 hours. It's obviously important to know that because you can't physically go up to the TC if you happen to bury it behind a wall. You're going to want to know what your upkeep costs are for each day. With this plugin also gives you the ability to calculate how much it would cost if you were going to upgrade or downgrade your base. So right now, this base that you can see right in front of you right now is mainly made out of stone. We've got a couple of metal doors, and as you can see by my upkeep cost calculator right there, it's showing you that information. But let's say I wanted to figure out how much it would cost if I wanted to upgrade the entire base to full armor. So to do that, we can do /upkeep, and then we want to go to level 4, which is the highest tier of building materials. And then the plugin tells you that if you were to upgrade this base to high quality metal, it's going to cost you 99 HQM every 24 hours. If we wanted to do the same thing for sheet metal, we can do /upkeep 3, and the plugin then tells you that this base would then cost 778 metal fragments for every 24-hour period. You can do that for all 5 levels of building materials: twig, wood, stone, sheet metal, high quality metal. So that's how you can use this plugin if you want your regular players to be able to use it. But the question that was asked of me in Discord was, how can an admin or a moderator see what's going on inside of somebody else's TC without actually being authorized on the TC? So let's go see how we can use this plugin as an admin or a moderator. So as you can see, we're at this base right here, and you can see in the bottom right hand corner that I don't have building permission on this base. And if I were to do /tcinv, this TC is actually locked and it's not giving me access to show that TC. However, as an admin or a moderator, assuming that you have Vanish on your server and you have the permission vanish.unlock granted to you, you can circumvent that protection. So all we have to do is go into vanish mode, and then we can do tcinv again, and now it bypasses that key lock or code lock, whatever happens to be on that TC, and then gives us access to the TC without actually being authorized on the TC. So as you can see, bottom right hand corner, I'm still building blocked, and here I am actually in this base's TC without having to authorize first. Now, I don't know why an admin or a moderator would need to get into a TC. Maybe if you wanted to be really nice to your players and restock their TCs for them, I'm not really sure. I have actually done that before, where I've gone into somebody's TC and restocked it because I noticed that something was starting to decay and I didn't want it to decay before that player came back onto my server. It's just one of those things, when you have a low pop server, you don't want somebody to come back to a base that is completely decayed, and if you happen to catch it, why not try and save it? I don't know. Maybe that theory doesn't work for everybody, but that's about the only reason why I think you would ever need to have access to somebody else's TC. Leave it in the comment section down below. If there's a reason why you can think of for an admin or a moderator to have access to somebody else's TC, I'd love to know about it. Now, one thing that I am unsure about is what happens if you go up to a base. So I currently don't have building permission on this base right here. And what happens if there's no code lock or key lock on their TC? Let's see if we can actually access it. You can access it. That's interesting. I did not know that. I'm actually kind of hoping that that's not the case for regular players. I'm hoping that this is a auth level 1 or auth level 2 type of feature that's actually granting me access to this TC without being in vanish mode. That's something that I need to look into. Because if this is the case for regular players, that means that anybody could walk around and take resources. No, that doesn't make any sense. There has to be something linked with auth level 1 or auth level 2 or owner ID or moderator ID that's allowing me access to do this, because that doesn't make any sense. And I can't possibly be the first person to have noticed that. So I'm going to go ahead and say no, that this is not the case. So forget everything I said in the last 30 seconds. I don't think that's a legit problem. One other thing I'd like to show you before I finish up with TC Manager is one of the quickest and easiest ways to make it so that people can access their TC remotely is by using a hotkey. So I've actually bound the command to a hotkey. In my case, I use F11 on my keyboard, and it brings up my TC at the simple press of a button. So if that's something that you wanted to do, that right there, what you see on the screen is exactly how I would do that. So bind F11 chat.say space, and then in quotes, you want to do the command /tcinv. If you want to change it to another key, of course, you would change it from F11 to whatever key you want it to be. All right, so that's TC Manager. So there's not really much inside the configuration file for TC Manager, which is why I didn't even go into that. In fact, there's only one line in there. So don't worry about your configuration file for TC Manager. But what is incredibly important is that you make sure you get your permissions done correctly. Like I said before, a lot of server owners won't necessarily give you access to tax rate or upkeep. They only give you access to tcinv and the ability to authorize new players to that TC. But like always, these are decisions that you have to make for your server. All right, so that's TC Manager. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, do me a huge solid favor and give me a gigantic thumbs up for this video. Remember, I put out a new video every Friday at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. Special thank you goes out to all my supporters over at patreon.com/srtbull. You guys help me bring you new content every week, so I super appreciate that. And to the person that mentioned to me that you don't like how the scrolling names across the top of the screen are getting caught up in editing, I have a solution for you, and it is coming at the end of this video. So make sure you stay tuned to the end of the video so you can see what I did for you at your request. All right, that's it for me. I hope you guys are staying safe and taking care of each other. Thanks for watching today's video. I'll see you guys next Friday.